Akshaya Patra is not just an organization. Akshaya Patra is a mission. Simple mission that no child will ever have to learn hungry. No child will ever go to school without food. That is our mission. We owe it to our future, our children. We want to make sure that we feed every child in India in school. That's the mission of Akshaya Patra.
As you all know, over the last 18 months, COVID has created a real havoc in India. Children are not going to schools, they're not being educated, and the economy in general has been hit pretty hard, particularly for the poor. There is widespread hunger across entire cross-sections of the society. Akshaya Patra, true to our mission, has really stepped up, and they've really helped reduce the hunger crisis in majority of the states in India. I think all of us should be very proud that Akshaya Patra so far has served 160 million meals to children and adults, families in need, in hospitals and in schools and many public places.
We will continue this effort to mitigate hunger in the society and get back to our core mission of serving school children directly when the schools reopen. In the meantime, as we reach out to our children and their families, migrants and the hungry, we need your help in sustaining this effort.
Akshaya Patra has grown over the last several years, both in scale and scope. In spite of all this expansion, the organization has remained true to its principles and maintained its values. I've been associated with this organization for the last 2 decades, and I've actually seen the impact that this organization has had on many, many lives that it has touched. Makes me really happy.
The vast volunteer network that has grown in the United States, from the eastern seaboard to the west coast, from the Great Plains to the south, that volunteer network is what has enabled the growth of Akshaya Patra over the last several years. I want to sincerely express my gratitude to the youth, the volunteers, the chapter chairs, and all of the well-wishers of Akshaya Patra. You have made our growth possible.
On behalf of the trustees of the Akshaya Patra USA and the entire network of Akshaya Patra in India, I want to welcome you all to the Western Regional Gala.
The Western Region Gala is the single largest fundraising event for Akshaya Patra. We have come together every year, raising more than 25% of our annual budget at this event. Please open your hearts and wallets as we want to fund this amazing cause. Together, let's all witness the glowing smiles of the Akshaya Patra children.
I took over as interim CEO of Akshaya Patra USA in June to help with the growth and transition. In the 3 short months, I have seen the dedication of our employees, our volunteers, and our chapter chairs. To them and our community, my sincere debt of gratitude. The organization is well set to continue to deliver on this critical mission of Akshaya Patra.
Thank you and welcome.
अच्छी बुरी यादें दामन में समेटे, आओ बढ़ाते हैं कदम रोशनी की तरफ। इंसान का पहना है चोला, तो आओ निभाए इंसानियत का फर्ज। हमारी दुआ है, ये है हमारी गुजारिश और है हमारी तमन्ना कि हर चेहरे पर मुस्कान हो और खुशी का इत्र महके हर दामन, खुशी का इत्र फैले हर दामन। Morning is an important time of the day because how you spend your morning can often tell you what kind of a day you are going to have. So this morning, I woke up with lots of positive energy and positive thoughts that this evening, the Patra of Akshay Dan will be filled with donations given with love, care, and gratitude. नमस्कार, वॉशिंगटन डीसी यूएसए से मैं सविता जैन अक्षय पात्रा वेस्टर्न रीजनल पार्टनरशिप फॉर होप गैला में आप सभी का तहे दिल से स्वागत करती हूँ। आदर, अभिनंदन, आभार। It is my honor to welcome and introduce to you our chief guests for the evening, Mr. Paresh Rawal and Mrs. Swaroop Sampat Rawal. Mr. Paresh Rawal, a dynamic actor, comedian, producer, and now a politician. Each one of his movies has a special touch of his amazing acting and dialogue skills. Recently, he was appointed as the chief of the National School of Drama. He was awarded with National Film Awards, Filmfare Awards, IFA Awards, and Padma Shri. Dr. Swaroop Sampat. We all know her from the TV show Ye Jo Hai Zindagi and many more Hindi films. Dr. Sampat won Miss India Universe title in 1979. She obtained a PhD in education. She did her doctoral thesis on drama to enhance life skills in children with disabilities. She travels across India to conduct workshops for teachers to impart this knowledge for the benefit of children. I bet you didn't know any of the humanitarian work Mr. and Mrs. Rawal have done beyond their work on the screen that we all have come to know and love them for. शहंशाही नहीं मुझे इंसानियत अदा कर ए खुदा, मैं लोगों पर नहीं दिलों पर राज करना चाहता हूँ. Please put your hands together for Mr. Paresh Rawal and Mrs. Swaroop Sampat Rawal.
Hello, I'm Swaroop and I'm a teacher, and I would like to tell you something about Akshay Patra from the educational point of view. Akshay Patra supplies the most incredibly nutritive, hot and tasty meals to the children studying in rural India. That is such a great thing, because you know that extra meal that they get is one of the most important meals of the day, and it really helps them to grow strong and healthy. I wonder what we would do without Akshay Patra. I have an interesting story to tell. I was working in some interior village in Gujarat, and they came to me and they said, Ben, can you help us to get Akshay Patra to come here and supply food to our school? Because you know, they don't come all the way into the interior. So I picked up the phone and I called up the office, and they were so helpful, and they actually took a longer route to supply food to that village school. Thank you, Akshay Patra, for the fantastic work that you're doing for the children of India.
Namaskar, this is Paresh Rawal, and I'm joining you for Akshay Patra Western Region Virtual Gala Partnership for Hope. I have been and I am an ardent supporter of Akshay Patra and known Mr. Deshpande for many years now. Akshay Patra is doing a commendable job of feeding 1.8 million children every day in India with freshly cooked milk. Every day. In one of my messages to TV Asia on Mother's Day, I had said, when you were a child, a school-going child, mother used to always ask, Beta, did you eat? Just imagine, there are millions of children that do not have such privilege. Today this audience is very well settled, living in comfort or luxury, and we can easily afford to feed those millions of children. And then came COVID, horrible time. But even in such difficult times, Akshay Patra continued with the effort to serve needy and poor. And last what I hear, Akshay Patra had served 167 million, I repeat, 167 million food kits, cooked meals and grocery.
थैंक यू मिस्टर एंड मिसेस रावल। संगीत एक ऐसा जादू है जो सिर पर चढ़कर बोलता है। तो आइए पेश है कुछ म्यूजिकल लम्हे जो दिल को सुकून दे जाए और हम सब के भीतर एक विश्वास जगाए और ये सोचने पर मजबूर कर दे कि हम परम सौभाग्यशाली है जो हमारे हाथ यूं उठाकर इस मनुष्य जीवन को सफल बना रहे हैं। भव्य भावना तथा खुले दिल से दान दीजिए। You have the power to create change. Flair 2.0 Carnatic is an experimental project founded by Mr. Paresh Rawal to attempt to present Carnatic music in a modern style by mixing them with bass, drum, and electronic dance music. The objective of this project is to present Carnatic music in a way that would appeal to the young and modern audience of today. And it surely did. Many of their compositions went viral on internet. And my personal favorite is Jingle Bells. So please welcome Carnatic 2.0, Mr. Paresh Rawal.
Hello and welcome to all of you. My name is Paresh Rawal and I have the wonderful Shravan Sridhar with me. And together we are called Carnatic 2.0.
We are extremely happy to be performing this year as part of the virtual gala of Akshaya Patra. It's the world's largest midday meal program serving nutritious meals to over 1.8 million students every single day. It's great to see these amazing efforts taken by this organization during these extremely tough COVID times. Hope you enjoy our music that we have planned for you today and hope you have a wonderful time listening to all the tunes that we're going to perform for you. Thank you so much.
The first tune is something that you'll all recognize, so please do clap along and enjoy yourselves. So the next song that we're going to be performing is actually a really special song for both of us. And what we do is we kind of present classical music in a very, very new way, which is relatable to all kinds of audiences. So one thing that we do is songs like Despacito, which we just performed, and the other side is we bring traditional classical repertoire in a very new way. So the next song I'm going to be presenting is called Krishna Ni Begane. It's in a language called Kannada, and it's a song we all love.
So before that, Mahesh, why don't you show everybody what is that little instrument you have in your hand and how you go about playing the geoshred?
Sure. So what I have in my hand is the iPad, actually. So as you can see, there's a grid of different boxes on the screen. And each of these boxes represent different musical notes. So as you can see, the blue boxes and the orange boxes, they all represent different notes. So if I click on them, they play different notes. And I'm able to slide across the screen as well. And this sliding functionality gives me the ability to play classical music. So if I were to give a short demo, this is what it would sound like. ತೋರಿದ ಜಗದೋ ಧಾರಕ ನಮ್ಮ ಉಡುಪಿ ಶ್ರೀಕೃಷ್ಣ ಜಗದೋ ಧಾರಕ ನಮ್ಮ ಉಡುಪಿ ಶ್ರೀಕೃಷ್ಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಬಾರೋ ಬೇಗನೆ ಬಾರೋ ಮುಖವನ್ನ ತೋರೋ ಕೃಷ್ಣನಿ ಬೇಗನೆ ಬಾರೋ 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 ಕೃಷ್ಣನಿ ಬೇಗನೆ ಬಾರೋ ಕೃಷ್ಣನಿ ಬೇಗನೆ ಬಾರೋ. Thank you very much. So, the next song that we're going to perform is something that will be extremely familiar to all of you. If you listen to K-pop or if you listen to Bollywood, these collection of songs are sure to make your day. So, let's begin.
That was such a melodious performance. Thank you. Now let me introduce our next guest. Cricket is his life, but he is not a cricket player. He was the first superstar of the sport in India who was not actually a player. Any guesses? Yes, Mr. Harsh Bhogle, the voice of Indian cricket, the most loved commentator of Indian cricket. He has now commented over 400 one-day internationals, over 100 test matches, and has been closely associated with T20 cricket. Mr. Bhogle has been the face of ESPN with his signature programs like Harsh Unplugged and Harsh Online. His newspaper columns are put together in a book called Out of the Box. Today, he is going to be on the other side of the table with Mr. Sri Rajan. Mr. Sri Rajan, the Vice Chairman of the Board for Akshaya Patra USA. Mr. Rajan is a partner in Bain and Company's San Francisco office. He is an active contributor to the firm's customer strategy and marketing, private equity, advanced manufacturing services, automotive and telecommunications, media and technology services. He is an investor and advisor to many startups and funds. Please put your hands together for Mr. Harsh Bhogle and Mr. Sri Rajan.
So Harsha, it's great to have you here. Welcome to the Akshaya Patra event. And you are obviously a legend in the area of sports, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about your journey, and we're going to talk about some of your experiences, and also more importantly, some of your learnings.
Thank you, Shri. You used a word that is a little too big for the status that I find myself in life right at the very beginning. Legends are, I mean, Tendulkar's a legend, and Bachchan and the others are legends. But I'll tell you, yeah, but cricket is, and for those who understand cricket, obviously it's fabulous because a long drawn out 5-day cricket test match actually mimics life better than anything can ever do on a sports ground. But yeah, I mean, cricket defines, I often tell people cricket defines me, but doesn't imprison me.
And of course, the writer Ramchandra Guha called cricket the perfect game. And so there are a lot of people in the audience who might dispute that, but obviously there's a lot for the people who are passionate followers of cricket.
Yes.
There's nothing better than a game. It doesn't matter if it's T20 or a 5-day game, right? So, but Harsha, I want to talk about your journey. You've had somewhat of a unique journey. So talk to us a little bit about that journey, about how you were a passionate player of sports and how you got to where you are today.
School laid the foundation for many things, for 2 or 3 things especially. One is it allowed me to fall in love with a game that has meant everything to me over the years, but also school that allowed you to play sport, that allowed you to dabble in public speaking. I was the most nervous public speaking person, but you acquired confidence as you went along. The friends that you made, it was wonderful. I'm very, very proud of the school I went to. I thereafter did 5 years of engineering college where I made a lot of friends, but it was a slightly soft engineering course. And I think the course that really defined me was thereafter 2 years at management school at IIM Ahmedabad, which I keep telling people is my test cap. I mean, a lot of people tell me, how much cricket have you played? And I said, you know what? I not only passed through the gates of IIM Ahmedabad, but I passed out of the gates successfully as well, which to date is my biggest achievement. So I started out in advertising. I was very happy in advertising, and I was doing a little bit of cricket commentary on the side, simply because my father used to come and watch me play cricket, and he thought I'd played as much cricket as I was capable of playing, which in his very polite academic style, he told me in that style of his. So I was doing a little bit. It was only when India opened out, when world-class television came to India, that I just happened to be in the right place at the right time and move with the tide. Our generation owes a lifetime debt to the Narasimha Raos, to the Manmohan Singhs, maybe under duress, but they opened the economy and we all just sort of went along with the tide. So proper television came to India. We learned from the best producers. and just grew. And cricket in India is, I mean, rising tide lifts all ships.
And how did you get into to sports commentary as a profession? So you were doing it on the side, and lots
Yes.
of people do different things on the side. Maybe play a guitar on the side, but they don't become, rock star, right? So how did you actually decide that this was something you wanted to do full time?
So in 1989, 90, I said, let me freelance a bit, because one of the advantages of going to a great institute is that you can go back to advertising, because you had that stamp. I'd worked in rediffusion, I could go back. So I started freelancing a little bit. I started writing about the game. I started doing a little bit on BBC World Service. At that time, they didn't have anyone from India. So I was doing a little bit on Australian radio. And I would travel and spend money, and whatever I got, as long as income was greater than expense, that was the money I was making. So it wasn't till television came to India, 94 or thereabouts, that you could think of making it a profession. And so when it came, some of us had done a lot of international radio. So we had to make the move to television, but we were ready. I mean, I still remember the day I was asked to host the live telecast of a cricket match for the first time in 1995. New Zealand are coming to India. ESPN is launching in India. ESPN was launched in 94, got delayed by a year. ESPN is launching in India. They said, you're going to be hosting the telecast. I had never done it before. I did not know what you wear. I did not know that the director spoke in your ear while you were presenting the telecast. I knew nothing. And because I didn't know anything, I wasn't scared.
And Harsha, the one thing that really, that's distinctive about you, I remember from the very early days of your commentating, was your deep knowledge of the game, right? I remember, the time it's not in your book, I don't know if you would remember it, but the time we went toe to toe with Australian broadcasters when they were making comments about the Indian cricket team and you pushed back.
What I learned about Australia was that they come hard at you. That's the way they play sport. That is the way their society is. But if you come back at them with your point of view and with a firm opinion, then they actually respect you. Unlike in some other parts of the world where they say, oh, he's coming back at me, is it? No, you come back hard at them. They come back hard at you. It's just two people with strong opinions sharing a point of view. And I learned that my style, therefore, suddenly became sort of made to order almost for Australian radio. And I was a curiosity. Look, before me, the only Indian voice they had heard was a legendary Indian broadcaster called V.M. Chakrapani, who was Radio Australia, who was All India Radio newsreader, Radio Australia. He finally migrated, settled there. They didn't know the Indian accent. They didn't know that Indians spoke good English. I would have people stopping me in the streets who didn't recognize me. If I went to buy ice cream, for example, they'd say, I know the voice. They didn't know the face. And they asked me whether I'd studied abroad. And I said, no, we study English in India. And so I became a curiosity, and one thing led to the other. But Australia was fantastic. For me, it set the scene for everything else that followed in my career.
So tell us, I want to move to, I know that there are many people in the audience today who are hungry for some of these anecdotes. You know all of these people personally, everyone from Dravid, to Dhoni, to Sehwag, to, of course, Tendulkar. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about your experience of knowing them personally and what it's like to interact with them. Obviously, we see them on the screen, they're legends, we see them in advertisements and so on. But what is it like, and what have you learned, from your commentating and from your experience of actually knowing them and interacting with them?
Very different. I mean, you look at someone like a Gavaskar was actually a postgrad. I don't think any Indian cricketer will ever do a postgrad again. I hope a lot of them want to graduate fully out of university, say like an Ashwin has, or like a couple of others have. But a lot of these boys came from middle class, educational kind of backgrounds. So Rahul Dravid's father, for example, Rahul Dravid is called Jammy because Rahul Dravid's father worked for Kisan Jam Factory. Rahul Dravid's mother actually did her doctorate in architecture many years later and had a celebrity photographer very proudly taking pictures of his mother. So Rahul Dravid came from that kind of background. VVS Lakshman's parents were both doctors. VVS Lakshman had, I think, matched a lot of state rankers in his science marks in his 10th, 12th standard exams and got admission into medical college. How many people who get admission into medical college go on to play 100 test matches, for example? Tendulkar's father was a professor. So they came from middle class backgrounds. As India opened up and went into smaller towns, people from different kinds of socio-economic backgrounds started to come in. And you look at all the bigger players today, they all came from, say, slightly less affluent families. So the SEC classification, as we call it, changed, but the hunger, the joy, that did not change. But the Dravid Tendulkar generation became the platform for a lot of young people to look up to because they were the television generation playing cricket.
And Harsha, what I'd like you to do is to talk a little bit about events that have shaped the character of some of these iconic cricketers, right? I mean, people remember Dravid and Lakshman at Eden Gardens, right? That iconic match. People remember, Tendulkar in Pakistan. But, I'm sure there are many more things that have shaped, the character, maybe even shaped the legends of these individuals. Maybe you can talk us, take some examples of some of these cricketers and talk a little bit about what shaped them.
It was a generation that grew up learning the best of Test match cricket. It was a generation that grew up with a lot of tenacity, with a lot of resilience, the words that we come to understand with Test match cricket, you will not get me out. But it was also a generation, Tendulkar, for example, just played and played and played and played. His coach would put a 1 rupee coin on his stump and say, if you don't get out, the coin is yours. And so they learned to protect their wicket. Rahul Dravid was told as a child that if your marks drop below a certain percentage, then you don't play cricket. So he had to study very hard to be able to play cricket. VVS Lakshman used to come home from his under 15 camps. His father had laid out an earthworm for him and he would learn to do all his dissections at home. So these were people who were multi-skilled, but who understood the importance of what they were doing. So Lakshman was given 5 years. Rahul Dravid was given a certain percentage. So they knew that if they didn't make it in that much time, they had to give up the game. And so they became really tough players from that point of view. But that generation worked very, very hard. And it laid the base for the next generation to come.
And, talking about working hard and the importance of preparation, I want to plug your book, by the way. I have it here right in front of me.
Thank you.
It's called The Winning Way.
Very proud of it, yeah.
It's a great read. It talks about lessons from sport that's applicable or that can be applied to the corporate world. But there's one incident over here that really sort of was very powerful for me, which is, how Sachin prepared. Right? People talked about his talent, but there's an incident over here about how he prepared for Shane Warne, one of the legendary, spinners of all time. I'm sure you remember. Do you want to talk about it? I mean, about how? Yeah, I think it's a great anecdote.
I'll tell you one thing I've learned about legends and the geniuses, as they are called. Show me a genius, and I'll show you the hardest working person in the team. And I think, we've all recently become re-aware of the legend of Michael Jordan with The Last Dance, the documentary. Now, everyone says Jordan was a genius. Jordan worked harder than everybody else. But what these people have innately is a great sense of playing the game and reading situations and being ready for situations. So this is back in 98. Tendulkar's at his peak as an aggressive batsman. The Tendulkar you saw from 2003 onwards was an accumulator. The Tendulkar pre-2007 was a destroyer. So Tendulkar's at his peak. Shane Warne has bowled the ball of the century in 93. He is the leg spinner, the blonde beauty, blonde beach boy. It's Tendulkar versus Warne. Now, before the test match in Chennai in 1998, Mumbai play Australia in a warm-up game for Australia. And the message to all the Mumbai batsmen was, don't let Warne settle. Just go after him. I think Warne's figures in that match were 16 overs, none for 111 or something like that. But Tendulkar came away from that game saying, it's interesting that for all the shots we were playing, Shane Warne never went round the wicket to me. Maybe he's going to go round the wicket to me in the test match. And what happens for a leg spinner is when the right arm fast bowler is bowling, he lands at a certain place that is outside the leg stump of the right-hander. It's outside the left-hander's off stump. And so for someone like Shane Warne, who's a big turner, if he can bowl on India's drying, deteriorating pitches outside the leg stump, he becomes very difficult to face. So he said, I think that is what he's going to do. Anticipation and preparation are qualities of genius. So he goes to Chennai 3-4 days earlier, requests MRF Pace Academy if he can use their facilities. Can you imagine Tendulkar's requesting MRF, can I please play? And he asked for a lot of leg spinners. And for 3 days, he just practiced playing round the wicket against leg spin bowling, scuffed up an area and saying, this is what Vaughan is going to do to me. And it's noticeable that after India fall back by about 80 runs in the first innings of that test match, Tendulkar in the dressing room says, somebody's got to get a quick 80-90 to turn this game. And then everyone looks around, he says, me. And the defining moment of that game comes when Vaughan goes round the wicket and Tendulkar slog sweeps against the spin into the stands at mid-wicket. Vaughan, in course of time, moved his line from outside leg to middle and off, which is where Indian leg spinners bowl. And people like Navjot Sidhu said that shot from Tendulkar opened up the game for us because we would never have been able to play that shot. So the preparation for that, not just the awareness, but the preparation. Who was one of the hardest working golfers in the game? Tiger Woods. Who was one of the hardest working basketballers in the game? Michael Jordan. Genius works very, very hard. And I remembered this incident when years later someone asked Brian Lara how he played Murali so well. And he said, because I knew what he was going to bowl. And they said, how did you know what he was going to bowl? He said, because I was forcing him to bowl that.
That's amazing. Harsha, I want to talk about the next topic I want to talk about is the importance of your mental makeup, the mindset, the mental strength you need to have. And this is not just for sports, but in general, right? And again, there's an incident in your book that talks about the Australian tour of Bangladesh, right? When, the Australian team is really tired. I mean, you don't say this, but they're probably fed up. They want to go home. And they're in a situation. Why don't you talk about it? I mean, why don't you talk about what happened?
Yeah. I remember meeting Brett Lee in the corridor of the hotel. And he said, I'm on fumes. My tank is empty. I'm running in on fumes. What had happened was, I think they'd come from South Africa. And this was in March, April, which is the end of the Australian season. So they've played the whole season in Australia. Then they've gone to South Africa. And now they've come to Bangladesh to play 2 test matches. Now, if any one of you has been to Dhaka, if you've been to Kolkata, that's good enough. So the humidity of Bangladesh with the very slow pitches and a completely knackered, tired team. I mean, sports teams are entitled not to want to go somewhere because they're exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
So Australia are exhausted and Bangladesh actually score 350 on the first day. But the Bangladesh captain says, another 100 runs, we will be safe. And everyone's saying, hang on. You are in a once in a lifetime situation of beating the great Australians on that track, but it hadn't crossed his mind that they could be in a winning position. And the following day, they are 150 for 6, 145 for 6. Australia, a 145 for 6. And Adam Gilchrist says, we've got to figure out a way to win from here. And that is when I learned that the champion sides are always saying, okay, let me accept the situation. And now let me figure out how do I win, because they never lose the focus on winning. But if you're not used to winning, you don't recognize a winning situation. And that is why it's so important to grow in teams that know how to win, because as part of your education, you learn how to win.
But by the way, just to close on the anecdote, Harsha, what was the result in that match in Bangladesh?
And Australia won because Bangladesh had at least 5 or 6 opportunities to close the match. And I mean, I remember Ian Chappell telling me that the fear of winning is sometimes greater than the fear of losing.
Yes.
And I understood the whole reason why people choke, why people stumble on the big stage. We're seeing the Olympics now. Why are people stumbling on the big stage? If you haven't been there and you're wide-eyed, are you thinking of pulling off your best? Yeah. So I thought that was a great example. It was one of the big learnings for me in life as well.
Harsha, you referenced the Olympics. I want to talk about that. It's now been a few weeks since, Simone Biles dropped out of the gymnastics event. What do you see, right? I'm sure, how do people deal with this? How do they deal with it and how do they come out of it?
We look at elite athletes and we think they come from another planet. Because we think, wow, they just have this drive to succeed. They are incredibly gifted. They are super people. And that therefore they must be wow at everything. They are incredibly gifted at one aspect of life, just as A forensic accountant is incredibly gifted at looking through balance sheets, just as a neurosurgeon is incredibly gifted at going through the narrow pathways and saving people's lives. But otherwise, they are like everybody else. And we've started to learn, sadly too late, that just as you have medical situations, just as you have physical ailments, you can also have mental ailments, that even the best can be lonely. There are no superhumans in the
Yeah.
world. So I'm so happy that these things are coming out and the world is accepting of these things.
Harsha, we could go on for a few more hours, but thank you so much. This is a
Thank you.
wonderful, wonderful conversation. And thank you for coming and sharing your time with Akshaya Patra. And, the cause is great that we work for, but thank you for contributing to that. And again, we look forward
Thank
to
you.
hosting you again on one of our future events as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not used to being on this side of the questioning. I'm normally the one asking the questions. So maybe one day I'll talk to you about your career and what Bain does. But since you mentioned Akshaya Patra, it's something I read about a lot.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people merely give lip service to the idea of doing things for the community. But to see people actually doing this for the community, setting up meals, is something that is so beautiful.
Yeah.
So more strength, what a lovely name, Akshaya Patra,
Yeah.
but more strength, not just to Akshaya Patra, but to all of you who are participating in that. So I wish I could be as rich and generous as you.
But thank you again, Harsha. Great
Thank
to
you.
have you. And we look forward to having you back soon.
Shri, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The fragrance of flowers spreads only in the direction of the wind, but the goodness of a person spreads in all directions. Our next guest, Mr. Rajiv Jain. He is the interim Chief Executive Officer of Akshaya Patra USA. In this new pro bono role, he is going to prepare Akshaya Patra USA for its next phase, where it will provide midday meals to 5 million children across India every day. निस्वार्थ कर्तव्य ही जिनका यशस्तंभ है, अनविरत कार्य ही जिनका सम्मान पत्र है. Please put your hands together for Mr. Rajiv Jain.
Thank you for joining us today. Mission of Akshaya Patra is that no child should be deprived of education because of hunger. We are world's largest midday meal program, serving nutritious meal to more than 1.8 million children in India every day. We serve these meals in nearly 20,000 schools across 13 states and 1 union territory. And we have 57 innovative kitchens. With more than 800 custom-built trucks, we deliver the food in what is called the hot chain, where the food is kept fresh at 65 degrees centigrade or above. We employ more than 7,000 men and women in India, and we have served more than 3 billion meals. So with that, let's talk a little bit about what is the impact of Akshaya Patra. And our impact is that wherever the Akshaya Patra start to serve the meal, the enrollment of children in the schools goes up, the retention goes up, the attendance in the schools goes up, because for a lot of these children, this is the only meal they get in 24-hour period. So the kids are more motivated to come to the school. And this is especially true among girls. Otherwise, these girls would work as maid in the houses and would get married at much younger age. And because of these midday meal, what we have found is the dropout rate drops pretty significantly, and the graduation rate of children from the schools, from primary school and middle school particularly, goes up pretty substantially. And all of these things strengthen the social development. And all of this takes only $20. $20 can feed a child for the entire school year. So let me talk a little bit about our journey since the beginning of COVID in March of 2020. As the schools shut down, Akshaya Patra started to look at innovative approaches for pivoting, still continuing to work on our core strength, which is feeding people. As many of you know, India faced migrant labor crisis in the summer of 2020. So Akshaya Patra pivoted and started to provide meal to these migrant workers who were walking hundreds or thousands of miles to go to their villages, to their hometowns. In August, when the schools were supposed to open and the schools did not open, Akshaya Patra pivoted again and started to think about how can we take care of our children. And what we started to do, we created these happiness kits. These kits contain the ration, the educational supply, and the sanitation supplies. And those kids would come to the school, even though the schools were closed, kids would come to the school, we would look at the roster and give them the happiness kit. Later, this happiness kit evolved into now what we call the family happiness kits, because we realized that not only these kids were hungry, but their families were hungry as well. Continuing, India was hit in 2020 by major floodings in many parts of the country, and we provide food relief in those areas. During all this time, we continue to expand and build on our capacity so that during the COVID time, we can serve more and more disadvantaged people, but also as the schools open, we keep our eyes on our goal of serving 5 million children every day by 2025. So we continue to expand our capacity. And when the second wave of COVID hit, with the lockdown being much tighter, we had to move into the second phase of our what we call the food relief effort. At that point of time, not only we were serving disadvantaged people, our children, but we also started to feed frontline workers, policemen, healthcare workers. And also we started to serve at the hospital because patients would come from remote places to the hospitals, but along with them would come their relatives, the immediate family members, and we started to provide meals to them. As the saga continues, we know that just like the rest of the world, India will keep getting hit by multiple waves of COVID. And one of the most effective ways of coming out of it is by reaching herd immunity by vaccination. And there is still a lot of hesitancy, especially among the lower strata of the society about getting vaccinated. And also, if these people were to go get vaccinated, they lose the wages for the day. To battle that, to combat that, we started to work on incentivized vaccination drive, where people come, they get the meal, and they also get the ration kit while they get vaccinated. So we procure the vaccines, and we also work with a healthcare organization in the area to actually administer these vaccines for us. We recently have also added what we call the Shakti kit, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But with all this, we have served, as of August 15, we had served more than 167 million meals. On an average, we are serving more than 1 million meals every day to disadvantaged people all over India, as you can see from this map. I would like to talk a little bit more about the three of the programs that I touched upon. The first one is the Family Happiness Kit, as I've shared with you. Originally, we started with the happiness kits, and these kits evolved into the family happiness kits. I would really urge you to consider donating to Akshaya Patra so that we can continue with these efforts. $5,000 per year can feed 10 families for the entire year. And these kits contain nutrition, ration, educational product, as well as the hygiene product. The next one I want to talk about is the Shakti kit. So these Shakti kits are designed for pregnant and lactating mothers. During the 6-month period, these women have very specific nutrition requirements, and Shakti kit is designed to meet those requirements. And these Shakti kits are delivered to these women in different places, including Anganwadis in India. And $1,000 can feed 67 expecting or new mothers. As I talked earlier about the incentivized vaccination drive, you can help us getting more and more people vaccinated. $10,000 can help 400 people get vaccinated. This includes the cost of vaccine administration, meal, as well as the grocery kit for these people to take it home with them. So I would seriously urge you to consider helping us out by donating. There are many other ways in which you can help Akshaya Patra. Donation is just one of them. You can create your own campaign, or you can donate to one of our existing campaigns. You can join a local chapter and volunteer, help us produce events like this, as well as many other local activities we conduct. We have a very vibrant youth ambassador program where your kids, or if you're a young one, you can join, and we make diyas, we write thank you card to the frontline healthcare workers here in our local communities. You can choose us as your charity of choice on Amazon Smile. I would also encourage you to follow us on social media and help us spread the word. On behalf of 1.8 million children in India, I would like to thank you. Enjoy the rest of the event.
Akshaya Patra means the unlimited bowl of abundance and sustenance. We are the driving force to eradicate classroom hunger in India, often providing the only meal a child receives in a day. Beginning in 2000, Akshaya Patra started by serving 1,500 meals to a small group of local schools in Bengaluru, India. Today, the organization boasts world-class, highly efficient kitchens that can cook up to 250,000 hot meals within 6 hours.
Akshaya Patra has brought together some of the best engineers to ensure that hot food is available in the required quantities to serve a large number of children to address this problem of child hunger in school.
ಪಕ್ಕದ ಮನೆಯವರೊಬ್ಬರು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅಕ್ಷಯ ಪತ್ರ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ರು. ಅವರು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ರು ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಊಟ ಕೊಡ್ತೇವೆ, ಅದು ಸಹ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ತುಂಬ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಬಡ ಮಕ್ಕಳು, ಅವರಿಗೆ ಊಟ ಕೊಡ್ತೇವೆ. ಆವಾಗ ನಂಗೆ ಅನ್ನಿಸಿತ್ತು ನಾನು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸೇರಬೇಕು, ನಾನು ಆ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೋಸ್ಕರ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನನ್ನದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಸೇವೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂತ ಅನ್ನಿಸಿತ್ತು, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸೇರಿಕೊಂಡೆ. ಅದರಿಂದ ನನಗೆ ತುಂಬ ಹೆಮ್ಮೆ ಇದೆ.
We source local produce and transport hot, nutritious meals in custom-designed vans.
ನಾವು ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೂ ಸರಿಯಾದ ಸಮಯಕ್ಕೆ ಊಟ ತಲುಪಿಸಿದರೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಮನೆಗೆ ಹೋಗದಂತೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಬಿಸಿ ಊಟನೇ ಊಟ ಮಾಡಿ ವಿದ್ಯಾಭ್ಯಾಸ ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಆಗ್ತೈತೆ, ಊಟ ಮಾಡಿ ಅವ್ರ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣವನ್ನು ಪಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಆಗ್ತೈತೆ. ಅದೊಂದು ಗುರಿ ನಮಗೆ.
कुछ ना कुछ आता रहता है, जैसे सोमवार को यानी मंडे को कुछ ना अलग, जैसे दाल सब्जी रोटी, कोई बार वो येलो कलर की रोटी वो बहुत अच्छी लगती है, उसमें अजवाइन.
It remains the mission for Akshaya Patra that no child in India shall be deprived of education because of hunger.
अक्षय पात्र संस्थान बीते 18 वर्षों से देश के बचपन को पोषक आहार देने का असाधारण सेवा का है, अतुलनीय समर्पण का है. ये हमारे उन संस्कारों का विस्तार है जो हजारों वर्ष की महान परंपरा ने हमें सौंपे हैं.
Anybody who is fighting against hunger, anybody who is providing food to the hungry is doing something very noble.
People often don't give because nobody they respect asks them. They don't think they can make a difference, and they don't see the results. What you see with this program is the opposite. If from 2000 it's going from feeding 1,500 meals per day to 1.8 million meals. That is 1,000% increase, and it is really making a difference.
Here's an organization where if you gave just $20, that's enough to feed a child and keep them in school for a whole year. And it's so little out of your resources that can make such a huge impact on somebody else's life that I think everybody should get involved.
So for all of those who are watching this, I suggest that you find some fulfillment and joy, love and equanimity by getting involved in any way that you can with Akshaya Patra.
ऐसे चैरिटी गालाज में एक बात बड़ी मजेदार होती है, पैनल पे बैठे हुए सब लोग आपसे कहते हैं कि चेक बुक निकालिए और डोनेशन दीजिए। चेक बुक? मैं कहता हूं चेक बुक हटाइए भैया, किस जमाने में है आप? क्रेडिट कार्ड निकालिए और अक्षय पात्र की वेबसाइट पे जाइए, डोनेट नाम का बटन है उसे दबाइए, या फिर चैट के बटन को दबाइए और दिल खोल के लिखिए जो आप देना चाहते हैं। हिंदी में एक कहावत है, दाने दाने पे लिखा है खाने वाले का नाम। मैं तो कहूंगा कि दाने दाने पे लिखा है खाने वाले का नाम और खाने खाने पे लिखा है देने वाले का नाम। आपका नाम, डोनर का नाम, अक्षय पात्र का नाम दीजिए, दिल खोल के दीजिए। थैंक यू।
It's hard to believe that an entire year has gone by since we last met for the Western Region Gala. And it's no surprise that COVID-19 has been the focus for that entire period. And when COVID first hit, we all wondered what next for Akshaya Patra because our entire focus was on schools. It's incredibly heartening to see what Akshaya Patra has been able to do in not just addressing the needs of the children that are now out of school, but also that of families and that of migrant workers and society at large.
I have always hoped to see India as a prosperous nation with ample opportunities for all its citizens. Unfortunately, many live below poverty line. I'm proud to be the chair of LA chapter of an organization that has strived to address through its midday meal program. Seeing the transformation that Akshaya Patra brings to millions of children through nutrition motivates me to raise awareness and funds to reach many more such children.
I hope that more people and youth are able to connect with the Phoenix chapter and also appreciate the work which our youth are doing. I hope that all children in India get better opportunities for their future, which begins with nutritious food and good education. The enthusiasm and energy of youth volunteers and all the people associated with Akshaya Patra motivates me to support Akshaya Patra.
I have always thought that hunger is something that should be put out like fire. And if there is one thing in this world that we need to eradicate, it is hunger. And I am happy and proud to be part of Akshaya Patra, which is doing a noble service of feeding nearly 2 million school children every single day in India.
We are privileged and honored to have been associated with Akshaya Patra for the last 5+ years and have been growing this community together with a fantastic team of some other co-chairs, volunteers, parents, and of course the youth ambassadors.
Hi, this is Sonali, and I'm the youth coordinator for Akshaya Patra San Diego chapter. 5 years back, we started with just 3 kids in our community, and today we are a team of talented, motivated, and skilled youth ambassadors of more than 45 kids. These kids have done beautiful projects, innovative projects like Diwali Diya projects, Valentine Day coaster projects, sapling drive, and virtual summer camps, building, raising, helping the communities and kids in US and as well as in India. I'm super grateful and blessed to be part of Akshaya Patra.
Come join us in this noble cause and help to spread the community and help the kids back in India. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you.
मधुबन खुशबू देता है, सागर सावन देता है, जीना उसका जीना है, जो औरों को जीवन देता है, मधुबन खुशबू देता है। खूबसूरत है वो आंखें जो दूसरों के गम में आंसू बहा दे, खूबसूरत है वो लब जिन पे दूसरों के लिए दुआ आ जाए, और खूबसूरत है वो हाथ जो मुश्किल के वक्त किसी का सहारा बने। सद्भावना के साथ खुले दिल से दान दीजिए। Whatever you give with a big heart comes back to you as a blessing. चलिए इसी श्रृंखला में मिलते हैं हमारे अगले गेस्ट से। Mr. Niren Chaudhary, Mr. Raghu Raghuram, and Mr. Siva Sivaram. Mr. Niren Chaudhary was named Chief Executive Officer of Panera in May 2019. He served Krispy Kreme Donuts as a Chief Operating Officer and President of the International Division. Prior to that, he spent 23 years at Yum Brands in a number of positions. Mr. Raghu Raghuram, Chief Executive Officer of VMware. Mr. Raghuram has held multiple leadership roles at VMware. Most recently, Chief Operating Officer of Products and Cloud Services. Prior to VMware, Mr. Raghuram held product management and marketing roles at AOL, Bang Networks, and Netscape. Mr. Siva Sivaram, Chairman of the Board for Akshaya Patra USA. Dr. Sivaram is President of Technology and Strategy at Western Digital. He held executive positions at Matrix Semiconductor. He was the founder and CEO of Tweed Creek Technologies. Please welcome Mr. Niren Chaudhary, Mr. Raghu Raghuram, and Dr. Siva Sivaram.
Good afternoon. Welcome to all of you to the Western Region Gala for Akshaya Patra. We have a panel of delightful CEOs for us to work with today. We have done the CEO forums in the past, but this one I am particularly fond of. Raghu, let me start with you. Sure. VMware sells products to big corporations. You are not one selling consumer products.
Yeah.
Involvement in the community, however, you have a very large presence in India. We have a very large presence in the US and elsewhere. What is corporate philanthropy and where are you taking VMware?
Yeah. Firstly, great to talk to you, Niren and Siva. And secondly, thank you for inviting me to this panel, especially to support the great work that Akshaya Patra does. So to talk about the specific topic of corporate philanthropy, for most CEOs that I speak to and most companies, the idea of stakeholder capitalism has taken root. We all recognize that the company's purpose is not just about investors and employees and customers, but increasingly about serving the communities that we live in and supporting society's most urgent needs. And so that, I would say, is something that's taken root, certainly at VMware, but of course, amongst our peer companies as well. At VMware, the approach we have taken is twofold. Firstly, instead of treating this as a side activity, the core of our corporate agenda is something that we call our ESG, or environmental, social, governance goals that we have established over the next decade. Specifically, we call it ESG 2030. And the social is a big part of that. And so what we try to do is to blend these ESG outcomes into our day-to-day business, our annual planning goals, our quarterly goals, et cetera, our resourcing, et cetera, and make it core part of our technology strategy and our business model, and certainly our culture. Secondly, what we do is our approach to philanthropy is more employee-oriented. We call it citizen philanthropy. Our fundamental thesis is philanthropy works best when the folks that are engaged in it really resonate with the causes that are near and dear to their heart. And so our role as a company is to provide a platform for our employees to exercise their philanthropic activities towards the causes that they support. So we have created a foundation that we call VMware Foundation. And the role of the foundation is not to give to any particular
organization or undertake any particular philanthropic activity on behalf of 34,000 employees, but to support our 34,000 employees in what they do. And as a result, out of our 34,000 employees, last year, I believe roughly 26,000 of them were supporting over 14,000 or 15,000 charities and philanthropic organizations around the world, not just with money, but with their time, with their intellect. And specifically speaking of India, we have about 5,000 employees in India, and they supported over 200 organizations. And my team in India tells me that actually 700 of them, they dedicated their support to Akshaya Patra. So I'm really, really proud of that association. We didn't ask them to, obviously, but that shows the power of your organization. And then lastly, I would say specifically in the last year, right, as with everybody else, COVID and the pandemic, helping the world get through pandemic has been a particular focus. And this is one place where we have made an exception. We have contributed as VMware, the company, as opposed to, in addition to VMware individuals at VMware. And this is both globally and then specifically in 2021, the first part of the year when the outbreak in India was particularly bad. We all banded together, working with the US Chamber of Commerce and the US India Business Council and the US India Strategic Partnership Forum, et cetera, right? So that's our approach to
thank you, Raghu.
VMware.
Particularly, I do want to say thank you on behalf of USABC. I'm on the board of USABC. It's good to see how the CEOs came together to immediately react to the needs in India. Niren, let me turn this over to you. You have a more immediate connection to low-end workers, hourly workers, who you've been responsible for when you took over the corporation. And suddenly pandemic hit, and then you have the issue of how do you take care of your employees? And you did that with a lot of compassion, with a lot of empathy to make this happen for your employees. Tell me, how did Panera Bread handle the pandemic, and how are you thinking about corporate philanthropy and your own role in the community?
Sure. Siva, it's great to see you, and Raghu, a real pleasure to be on the stage with you. I guess on the Zoom call with you. Well, Panera Bread is an iconic brand in the US, 2,500 stores, 130,000 employees across 48 states. I really believe that the job of a leader has to be a force multiplier for good. I think it would be irresponsible for us leaders, as human beings, as leaders, as corporate citizens, if we do not have that impact agenda as part of who we are and how we show up. So that's, I think, at a personal level, I think that's a deep conviction that I have. Panera Bread, at its very core, has this desire to be a force multiplier for good, embedded in its core DNA. It has always had it, and we continue to nurture that. So I'll share with you, what is at the heart of how we show up, and then what we did during the pandemic, and some thoughts as we go forward. So I think to give you a sense of how deeply rooted it is, we have some signature community programs where we donate the end of day unsold bakery products to 4,000 nonprofit organizations in the US, worth about $150 million every year. That we do that year on year, and it's part of a commitment to the communities in which we operate. We're also very deeply committed to the impact agenda on planet, and therefore, making sure the food that we serve is climate friendly, responsibly raised, sustainable, and we do that in a very sort of in a way that you would expect a brand like Panera to do. So that's at the core and the foundation of who we are. During the pandemic, as you said, I think it was a moment for us to really step up and do the right thing. We knew we had to take tough actions, but we were determined and resolute to do that with a utmost sense of empathy and compassion for our associates, our customers, and our communities. So let me give you some examples. During the pandemic, we had to unfortunately furlough close to 35,000 people. And that was a tough thing to do, but we had to do it. However, we went above and beyond what was required or expected by, I reached out to the CEOs of CVS and Walmart when I read that they were actually hiring people. And we did a partnership with them for them to temporarily hire our furloughed employees and then give them back to us once it was over. With our customers, of course, we set up a new line of business called Panera Grocery because we knew that our customers were struggling to get access to high demand grocery items. And finally, on community, we did programs to feed doctors and nurses. We were serving 50,000 meals a week to doctors and nurses in New York. Like Akshaya Patra, we did a school meals program, realizing that kids were going hungry because they don't have access to food anymore. We partnered with the USDA to launch school meals in the state of Ohio. And then finally, we partnered with Feeding America to serve 500,000 American families through the pandemic. I just feel that these are just an example of some of the stuff we were able to do. It's never enough, but I think doing something is better than just thinking about it, is my conviction. And as we look ahead, I think there are two areas where we definitely want to lead at Panera Bread in the way in which we show up and how our compassion or impact agenda shows up. And those two areas one is diversity and inclusion, where I really believe that at Panera Bread, we want to be a reflection of the world that we wish to see inside Panera. Inclusive, compassionate, respectful, embracing of all kinds of differences. We're very committed to that. And the second is that we want to make a dramatic impact on climate change. I feel it would be irresponsible for any company, any leader in today's world who doesn't have climate change as part of how they wish to impact the community and planet more broadly.
Niren, thank you. I want to bring this then back to you two leaders personally. So Raghu, we were just talking about the role of the leaders in the community. VMware, of course, is selling to large corporations with virtualized machines and software. An average man does not relate to it. An average man cannot understand the products. A man on the street cannot know, obviously, what VMware does. On the other hand, you as a person have been very closely involved with the community. How do you bridge that gap? How do you show that your own empathy to both personally? What is it that motivates you? What turns you on? What is it that makes you give back to the society?
While VMware does a lot of business with large corporations, we also help a lot of nonprofits. And one such example, for example, is the American Red Cross, where we very quickly help them get going as they set up shop in a new disaster area, for example. So VMware's appeal is not just enterprises, but also nonprofits. Speaking of me personally, growing up in India, you realize the enormous difference in life outcomes that education enables for everybody. So right from the get-go, education, especially early childhood education, had been a significant area of interest for me. Because what you realize growing up is, if you're able to get the benefit of the good education, you've truly won the lottery of life. In fact, all of us on this call and in the audience presumably won the lottery of life. And so that's something that has always stuck with me. And so I've done whatever I always look to do whatever I can in terms of early childhood education across all stages, where I can help. I think that's a cause that's near and dear to me. The second, and this is, I'm sure we'll be talking more about Akshaya Patra later, is hunger and education are highly interrelated. And so the cause of eliminating hunger is in fact a contributing factor to increasing the success people can have with education. So these are two causes that really appeal to me, and I try to do my part.
Niren, let me come to you. I know this is an extremely personal issue, and You have addressed this in public in the past. Your life in the last years have been shaped by your personal tragedies. You are giving back to the community in memory of your daughters and their impact on you. Can you talk a little bit more as to what giving back to society or the impact that you think you can make to the community?
Sure. So I think we're all shaped by our life's experiences. And like many of us, I've had my share of losses. I think the two biggest losses that I experienced as a father was the loss of two of my daughters. Tanya, who died very early when she was 8 months old, and then Aisha, who died recently in 2015 when she was 18. That, as you can imagine, was always, it's an experience that no parent would ever want to go through. However, I think I have tried to embrace my pain and see how I can convert my pain into purpose. My daughter used to say, if you can't change your own life, there is always someone else's. And I feel that my healing will come in part from my being able to be there for other people and making a difference in the lives of those around me. So I think it's, you're right, it's deeply personal. And I think just a little bit about my daughter, Aisha. She's probably the person who inspires me the most because of the way in which she embraced her reality. Even though she knew she had a terminal illness, she knew she had only 5 years to live. It was the way in which she embraced it, and she virtually lit up the skies in the short life that she had, that I seek a lot of inspiration. And what I learned from her most of all were three things. One is to have courage in the face of adversity by focusing on what you have control over and not what's happening to you. The second is to always view life through the lens of gratitude. And if we do that, even in the middle of all kinds of difficulties, we can see miracles happening around us all the time. And the third is the true joy really happens in the act of giving to others. So I think this courage and gratitude and giving is what has shaped me. And I leverage and I go back to those lessons and reflections frequently, as I did even during the pandemic. I get strength from whenever I'm sort of feeling beaten up. I go back to, okay, how can I focus on what I can control? How can I still have a sense of gratitude despite these overwhelming problems that I have? Who can I give to? How can I make a difference? So a lot of that passion and energy, I'm grateful that I have a company like Panera Bread and my associates and my franchise partners and also my owners who allow us to show up in a way recognizing the importance of having an impact agenda. And finally, I think one area of my personal involvement is close to heart around what impacted Aisha. So Aisha lost her life because she couldn't find a bone marrow donor, and therefore she died. And therefore I have partnered with one of the world's largest bone marrow donors companies called DKMS. It's a US-based organization, dkms.org. And I would request all the listeners, if they feel moved by what I have said, to go there and register as a potential bone marrow donor. You'll be on their database, and you never know, you might end up saving the life of one Aisha in the future. So that's what I'm personally involved with at the moment.
Thank you. And that's personal and moving. And as parents, we wish nobody has to go through. And thank you for having the courage to share that through us. I want to bring it back to Akshaya Patra today, Raghu. Akshaya Patra, as you know, has this single mission: no child should go to school hungry. It's about as clean, as well said a mission as we can ask for. And during the pandemic, we have served over 160 million meals in the last 16 months.
Yeah, that's
The
unbelievable.
cost is relatable. Children in India, when they go hungry, you've seen this personally, I have seen this personally. What does Akshaya Patra mean to you? What do you tell people when you say we are talking about Akshaya Patra?
Yeah, what you just said, the simplicity of the purpose and the clarity of the purpose is, to me, it just jumps out. And like I was talking about when you were asking about the causes that I relate to, hunger and education are deeply interrelated, and having a young child have to make this tough trade-off, which is really a trade-off between the present and the future, if you think about it, right? It's an impossible position. And the fact that Akshaya Patra is attacking this with such vigor and purpose it's a fantastic mission in my eyes. And that's what I tell people. And the second aspect of it is the scale at which you're doing it. You just rattled off some numbers. You said 160 million, is that? Man, that's amazing. I'm sure Niren can relate to that given his business. I think to be able to do it at scale in normal times is impressive. To be able to do it in scale during the last 18 months is it's amazing to me. It's awe-inspiring to me. And then this third aspect I would say is having spoken to some of your folks, some of the Akshaya Patra folks, the technology involved, and to be able to do it in a distributed fashion at scale as a technologist, I relate to, right? So all of these things coming together makes, I think, in my opinion, Akshaya Patra a very unique organization and very successful. And the transparency, I mean, you publish your finances on your website, and the effectiveness is also something to be applauded.
Thank you, Raghu. Appreciate the kind words about the organization. And Niren, when you are talking about restaurants and what you give and the bakery items, end of the day, I was thinking, when are you going to open all the panera breads in India, and how can we partner with you to go do the same distribution? So, how can the panera bread learnings be applied to an organization like Akshaya Patra? What can you tell us?
Well, firstly, I think congratulations on the incredible work that you do. I find the purpose really inspiring, that no child should go hungry. I think it's such a simple, powerful, elegant expression of something that nobody can disagree with. I think it resonates at so many levels. Firstly, I think children are our future, so it resonates there. Hunger, I think, is a fundamental right. Nobody should go hungry, and least of all children. And I love the way, Raghu, you talked about the interconnectivity of hunger and education. Children who are well-fed, well-nourished, are in the right state of mind to get educated. And if they get educated, that's how they'll transform their future and lead the world for many, many more years to go. So I think they're interconnected. I also think, like Raghu, that education eventually is the transformation that creates generational prosperity. The way to progress is through education, but education cannot happen on an empty stomach. And and particularly, I think we have to be very responsible towards our children. So, and I think coming from India, I think I have seen firsthand how difficult that is, and what a significant challenge that is, and various levels of complexity. So I just applaud you and the entire organization for what you're doing. And we would love to, support you in your mission in some way.
So Raghu, let me give you the floor for the last few minutes that we have today. You have talked about you personally, what the company does and what the corporate philanthropy is, and where your personal passions are. Philanthropy and giving back are important aspects in your life. You have an audience of almost 1,500 people listening to you. What would you like to tell them?
Yeah, I mean, I would firstly, Niren, your stories inspiring, not, I'm sure, to all the listeners and certainly to me. But the three principles that you articulated are timeless in my view. And truly the third one, which is the true joy, is the joy of giving. And by the way, it is not dollars and cents, it is giving in every sense of the word. I would say that's the first and perhaps one of the most important things that I personally feel that people understand once they start doing that. So that would be my first advice to folks is take action in any which way possible, however large, however small, in terms of whatever form it takes. I would say that's the first one. And the second is we are all citizen philanthropists, and it is not a job of the Bill Gateses of the world or any of those sort of folks with the big foundations. We are individually citizen philanthropists, and it's the power of individual action that can create and has created a large-scale change. And so that's the concept that I would love for everybody to embrace.
Thank you, Raghu. Niren, what would you want to tell this group of people who are fans of Akshaya Patra, who are listening to you, clearly are motivated towards giving? What would you like to tell them?
Yeah, I think firstly, of course, I would wholeheartedly request everyone to support Akshaya Patra and the incredible work that you're doing in whatever way they can. So I think I'm really inspired by what you do and the scale of what you're able to achieve under very difficult circumstances. Secondly, I think to all the listeners, I would say that, leadership is a privilege. And leadership cannot be confined to the boundaries of the organizations that you steward. Leadership has to have an impact beyond the confines of the organization that you steward. So thinking about how can I have a broader impact, not only within my organization, but the community in which I serve, and also the planet at large, I think is a personal calling for all of us. It's a personal accountability, I believe, that each one of us needs to have. And to be able to do that, I really believe that, and this is more applicable than ever, that leadership, to be able to achieve that broader impact, it is not only about being smart, it is about being good, a good human. I think smarts one can acquire through education, but goodness in your heart comes through, building your character, and by being reflective, by deepening your sense of compassion, your empathy, and your caring, so that you show up as a compassionate, humane leader. And I think when one does that, I feel it engenders trust, and then trust becomes a magnifier of your impact to beyond the organization that you steward. So therefore, I would say support Akshaya Patra, number one. Second is think about becoming a compassionate leader.
Niren and Raghu, this has been just wonderful. You both are role model leaders. You are both pillars of the society. I do appreciate you taking the time to support a cause such as Akshaya Patra. Your words mean a lot to us personally and to the audience. It is so good to have the chance to talk to you. Appreciate both of your time. Good luck for the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
माझे नाव समीक्षा शांताराम गडेकर. मी आता 5वी मध्ये शिकते. मला शाळेत अभ्यास करायला आवडतं. मित्रमैत्रिणींसोबत खेळायला आवडतं.
मुलगी मोठी होत असताना मला निरनिराळ्या प्रकारच्या अडचणी येत असतात आणि त्यांच्या आहारामध्ये सुद्धा वाढ होत असते. त्यानंतर आम्हालाही त्यांना आहार पुरवता येत नाही असं प्रॉब्लेम होत असतो. MDM सुरू होण्यापूर्वी मुलीला सांभाळायचं, तिला खायला द्यायचं, ती आजारी झाल्यानंतर तिला हॉस्पिटलमध्ये न्यायचं असं मला सामोरं जावं लागायचं.
मी ते MDMचं जेवण येते ते 3 वर्षापासून खाते. मला खिचडी, छोले, डाळ आणि भात आवडतं. माझ्या आवडीचं जेवण असलं तर मी 3 वेळा पण घेते.
आता ती उपवाशी राहत नाही. लहान असताना ती जेवण करायचीच नाही. आता MDM जेवण देत असल्यामुळे ती भरपूर आहार करत असते.
हां, मला खूप खुशी होते जेवण आल्यावर.
MDM अजून माझ्या मुलीला मिळणाऱ्या जेवणपासून तिला वेळेवर अभ्यास करते, जेवण करते व मैत्रिणींमध्ये खेळायला जाते. दुसऱ्याही मुलांना खूप त्याचा फायदा व्हावे. कोविडच्या काळामध्ये अक्षय पात्राकडून आम्हाला तांदूळ मिळाले, आटा भेटला आणि घरामध्ये लागणारं साहित्य, जेवणाचं डाळ मिळाली, भाजीचे पदार्थ असे शाळेकडून आम्हाला मिळालं कोविडच्या वेळेमध्ये.
MDM जेवण येतं त्याने मला खूप आनंद होतो आणि ते जेवल्यानंतर मी अभ्यासाला पण मला आवडतं.
हे देणगीदार आणि हे अक्षय पत्राच्या टीमला माझा मनापासून नमस्कार आणि त्यांनी असंच कार्य करत राहावे आणि अजूनही शाळेकडे जाऊन सर्व शाळांना मदत करावे अशी माझी इच्छा आहे.
I would really request all of you at the gala to please go out of your way and help Akshaya Patra become strong. Every dollar that you give is going to go a long way in helping us become stronger. Because you see, without the nutrition that Akshaya Patra supplies, there is no work in education happening. And you know, education for all is a very, very important goal of 2030. So Akshaya Patra is doing such a great job. But Akshaya Patra needs our help. So please, please, please donate generously and just do whatever you can and a little bit more to help Akshaya Patra become stronger and healthier. Thank you.
With that, let's bring back Carnatic 2.0, Mr. Mahesh Raghavan.
So the next song that we're going to present is famous all over India and it originates from Kerala. It's a song of celebration and it's in Malayalam. I'm sure all of you will enjoy it, but please clap along and sing along if you know the song as well.
അടുത്തോരമ്പലം വേണം, ആലിന്നു ചേർന്നൊരു കുലവും വേണം. ആലായാൽ തര വേണം, അടുത്തോരമ്പലം വേണം, ആലിന്നു ചേർന്നൊരു കുലവും വേണം. കുളിപ്പാനായി കുളം വേണം, കുളത്തിൽ ചെന്താമര വേണം. കുളിപ്പാനായി കുളം വേണം, കുളത്തിൽ ചെന്താമര വേണം. കുളിച്ചു ചെന്നകം പൂക്കാൻ ചന്ദനം വേണം. ആലായാൽ തര വേണം, അടുത്തോരമ്പലം വേണം, ആലിന്നു ചേർന്നൊരു കുലവും വേണം. ആലായാൽ തര വേണം, അടുത്തോരമ്പലം വേണം, ആലിന്നു ചേർന്നൊരു കുലവും വേണം. ആലിന്നു ചേർന്നൊരു കുലവും വേണം. പൂമാനായാൽ ഗുണം വേണം, പൂവായാൽ മണം വേണം, പൂമാനായാൽ ഗുണം വേണം. പൂമാനിൽ മർഗലായാൽ അടക്കം വേണം, പൂമാനിൽ മർഗലായാൽ അടക്കം വേണം. നാടായാൽ റിബൻ വേണം, അരികെ മന്ത്രിമാർ വേണം. നാടായാൽ റിബൻ വേണം, അരികെ മന്ത്രിമാർ വേണം. നാടിന്നു ഗുണമുള്ള പ്രജകൾ വേണം. ആലായാൽ തര വേണം, അടുത്തോരമ്പലം വേണം, ആലിന്നു ചേർന്നൊരു കുലവും വേണം. ആലായാൽ തര വേണം, അടുത്തോര
Hope you all enjoyed that one. And the next song that we're going to present is all about TV and movies. And we're pretty sure that you will enjoy this. we're sure so many of you recognized those tunes. And we've come to the last and final songs or group of songs. And these are songs that we are sure you all recognize.
And thank you so much once again for being such a fantastic audience. You guys are definitely going to love these songs. So clap along, sing along, and have fun. Let's go.
Dum dum tanana, dum dum tanana, dum dum magappa. Tagarda dum tanana, dhira na 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 na. Tanana dhira na, gama gama magama pa magappa. Tanana dhira na, gama gama magama magappa. Gama gama magama pa magappa. Ni bama pagari ni bama pagari gama pa magama gama pa magama gama pa magama gama pa magama mapani magama gama pa magama gama pa sagama gama pa magama ni bama pa gari gari ni sa ma gari sa ni da ba Nini sa 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 nini sa 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 ni sa ga ni sa ga ra ni sa ga ni da ba ri sa ni da ba ma ga ni sa ga ni sa ga ma pa pa ba ni ba pa ba pa sa ni da ba ba ma pa ni ba pa ni ba ma pa sa ni da ba ma ga ri sa ni sa ga ma pa ni sa ni ba ma ga ri sa la la Gama pa ma gari ni sa ga ma pa ni sa. Oh I, oh I, oh I, oh I.
Thank you so much. We really hope you enjoyed our performance. Please put your hands together for Mahesh Raghavan.
And the wonderful Shravan Sridhar. We hope you really had fun. And we surely had a lot of fun performing for all of you. Please have a wonderful evening. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the inspiring presentations and conversations, as well as the entertainment. Thank you very much.
किस उम्र में कमाया जाए और किस उम्र तक पढ़ा जाए, ये कभी कभी शौक नहीं, हालात तय करते हैं। बड़े सौभाग्यशाली हैं हम जो भरपूरता के साथ इस जिंदगी को जी रहे हैं। तो आइए प्रकृति का लिया हुआ कुछ उसी को लौटाकर अदा करते हैं अपना फर्ज, क्योंकि आज तक दुनिया में कोई इसलिए सम्मानित नहीं हुआ है कि उसने दुनिया से क्या लिया है, बल्कि इसलिए कि उसने दुनिया को क्या दिया है। खुशियां दे और खुशियां ले, क्योंकि मुस्कान और मदद ये दोनों ऐसे इत्र हैं जो आप जितना ज्यादा दूसरों पर छिड़कोगे उतनी ज्यादा महक आपके अंदर से आएगी। कल बीत चुका है और कल अभी आया नहीं, हमारे हाथ में केवल आज है। तो चलिए शुरुआत करते हैं आज से, अभी से। प्लीज डोनेट। किसी की मुस्कुराहटों पे हो निसार, किसी का हो सके तो दर्द ले उधार, किसी के वास्ते हो तेरे दिल में प्यार, जीना इसी का नाम है, जीना इसी का नाम है। नमस्कार।